Welcome to week 2 online lessons, and we are going to go over the topic of phrasing. So I've talked about some of this beforehand. I've mentioned it within some of our improvisational and our creativity practices, but this is where we're going to dig into it a little bit more. So phrasing in itself is not necessarily the notes that we play, but it's really how we play the notes that really gives an artist's signature touch just as much as what your signature touch is going to be when you play guitar. And when you play the lead lines and the rhythm, that's going to stand out way different than anybody else. So think of it as you creating your own sound. So how do we do that? How do we do this, Travis? How do we create our own sound? Isn't there a bunch of guitarists out there? Don't they all sound the same? No, not necessarily true. And I think if you went and listened to a Rolodex of all your favorite musicians, that you would find that their sound from person to person is very different. Even if it was subtle, still is different, and that's just based off of probably phrasing element choice, rhythmic density, and just the tone that they like. So in this, we're going to start crafting our own signature tone. Okay guys, I didn't say it before, but I'll say it now. The goal for this is to make it as creative and fun as possible. So I want you to come up with your own lick, be it simple. I'm just starting with the 2-string shape of the Aeolian 6th and 5th and 4th string. The real importance of this is not my lick and not the exercises being played, but what I did to my exercise throughout this whole entire lesson. So it's very important for you to understand that what I'm doing in these videos is more important than the PDF Guitar Pro exercise. But that way you get to see what I did to make it sound just as good as you would like yours to. So very important. I want to put this out here so that way you guys get the most from this lesson. So what we're going to do to really practice our phrasing elements here is we're going to take something simple. Let's look at this, just the first 2-string shapes of Aeolian. And that is played 5, 7, 8, 5, 8. Like so. So it'd be 5, 7, 8 on the E string, 5 on the A string, 8, 7, 5, 7, 8 on the E string again, 5, 7, 8 on the A string, 5 on the D string, then 8, 7, 5, 7 on the A string. Like such. So one of the ways that we can change this is to add some rhythmic density or rhythmic variations to it. So instead of playing all 8th notes, we could play anything a little bit different. You know what I'm talking about? Love that. So with that, I sped up that very bottom bass line by playing a different rhythm of notes than are just 8th notes. Or you could probably say it was more of triplet, or 8th note triplets. But either way, the density of the notes changed. That gave it a different feel, gave it a little bit of different vibe, and it was kind of cool too. That's literally, I changed one thing and it sounded pretty good versus able to change any part of that by changing the density of the notes and how it's played. So you could change anything from like your eighth note or eighth note triplets. You could make it quarter notes, half notes. You can make them 16th notes. You can make them 32nd notes if you're feeling crazy. But what I want you to do with your lick, whatever you come up with, I want you to take that, write it out, and change what part of it you want to make faster or slower in that rhythmic density. So write it out, play it, see if you like it, and change it up some more. That will help you to make it sound great. So the next item that I want us to focus on is legato. So from an articulation standpoint, legato changes how it feels when we play it versus everything being picked. So I'm just going to take a bit of this and I'm going to use legato in it to see how we can make it different. That feels a little different than everything being picked. It's got more of a flowy to it, and it definitely changes in that rhythmic category as well that we just previously talked about. So with legato, just like we did with the rhythmic variation, I want you to write out the parts that so take that original lick and I want you to write out the parts that you're using legato over. Isolate that, play it through, and see how it sounds. If you don't necessarily like it, that's okay. Not every part has to be played with legato. Not every part needs to be rhythmically changed. Find the parts that you like that you did add and make them different. So here's an example where I did 3 notes of change, but let me just add 1 or 2 notes. I know I'm adding or minusing some few notes, but adding those little pieces of legato in between those pick notes, that very adds a whole different flavor to it than just everything being picked at the same time. And I hope you start to understand why I did legato in the last week leading into this week, so that way you have a better understanding of it when we get to now use it. So I hope you like this one. The next one that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about using bend notes. So let's just add 1 bend note for this moment, and let's make it very dynamic, like something that's got to say a lot. Can you take a guess on what note I'm gonna make it? See what I did there? I basically added it to the second last note, bending with anticipation to end it, and then hammering back on that last note. So let me do it again for you. We can do a couple different bends. Let's see what that's like. Those bend notes give it kind of like this aggressive feel and definitely builds that anticipation while we're just playing this lick. Like, think bluesy. Think about the solos that you really love and listen to. Think about when that bend note comes in. Think about how that makes you feel. And if you understand how that makes you feel, it'll help you to know when you want to put it in a lick and what that feeling is to you. And granted, that's all subjective, but to me, it's something that it has me hanging on, waiting for that resolution to happen. And then when it finally does, it's like a release. It's like I can breathe again. Because I'm like, that bent note is like walking up to the edge of a cliff and staring off. I'm just holding my breath. And then when that resolution happens, it's like a step back and I can breathe again. That's how I interpret a bent note. So how you interpret it might be completely different than how I interpret it. But being able to take what you interpret it as and then apply it where you want it, how you want it, to express what you want, that is the gold of phrasing. Cool. So we can also use slides in the same way. This is nothing different to you guys at all. So with that, add a slide anywhere within that lick. I know this is ever changing as I'm going, so it's hard for it to stay the same, but add a slide in one or two places, and you can always add more and subtract more. So let me just add it in one or two places instead of just improvising all of this. So in that case, I added it here. Spots. I added it here, and coming back, then I added it so that is an easy task, just like the bent note. Just pick a spot that you want to add it and then see how it sounds, and you can always change it up. Now we can integrate those last two. Let's see how that sounds. Kind of cool now that we can start stacking these things all on top of each other to make something really complex out of something pretty simple. Or at least I believe it to be pretty simple. Alright, so we can also do hammer-ons and pull-offs, just like what we did with legato. So how could we do this to make this work, huh? Well, let's just do the same like what we were doing before. And if you didn't hear it before, I was always adding that hammer-on to that last note anyway. But we could do something where we have a couple hammer-ons and pull-offs just on that last note too. So again, write out that original lick, add a couple of previous elements, and then toss some hammer-ons or pull-offs and see how you like it. Very important. Alright, so this ornament is called a trill. A trill is a continuation of a hammer-on and pull-off. It's meant to build anticipation, and you've definitely heard it before if you listen to any classical style music, or shoot, any kind of like heavy metal solo that kind of is influenced by such. Definitely some Ingve shit. So, pardon my French. So that trill is hammer-on and pull-off. Again, it's a great way, kind of like a bend, to build anticipation and delay the resolution. So, big time plus. Love it. The next one that we're going to look at is vibrato. So, vibrato, if it's not something you've learned yet, is the art of taking a bent note instead of just having it raise. We're basically taking that note, so from B to C back to B, but it's a consistent sine wave from there to there. It's not up, jerk, down, jerk, up, jerk, down, jerk. That would be like a sequences of bends. To best explain vibrato I was talking about with the shifting up and down, it should sound like this. This sounds like just bent up and down. This is so that's the difference between vibrato and just occasional bends. So you can add vibrato to any part of that lick. I just chose to add it on You can add it to any part of it in itself, and it'll sound really freaking good. So guys, to wrap this thing up, what I want you to tackle is I want you to go through your lick that you came up with, apply all these different ornaments and combine them to come up with something really cool and original that's yours, that's your sound. And the more that you do this, the more that you will like certain sounds versus others. And that's really how you bring out your personal tone, your signature style as a musician. So it doesn't have to just be this lick. Come up with a bunch of different more licks. Do the same thing. This is a creative piece, and you will continue to get better and better the more that you do this, the more that you implement these ornaments and phrasing techniques into your style of play. I promise you that. It takes time and effort, but it's fully worth it. Believe me. If you like how my guitar sounds, it's a testament to what you can get it to sound like too, just for you. So do that. Also, remember to go and listen to your favorite guitarists and see how they use those same elements that we talked about in their music, in their licks, in their style of play. So that way you get a better feel of what you're trying to target and what you're trying to take from them and apply on your own. So have fun, be creative, and get after it. I'll see you guys.